Sports fans, welcome to Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, at least Cincinnati, Ohio is behind me, and most people know this region know I'm actually standing across the river in the city of Covington, which is in a different state, Kentucky. But I'm going to cross the river in a few seconds to go to that place over there, Great American Ballpark, the home of the Cincinnati Reds, and a ballpark I haven't visited in quite some time, almost 2 decades. So it's way too long. So I'm really excited to catch up and see what's new at this ballpark. So let's go.
Since it had been such a long time, I was curious to know how much had changed from my previous visits to this ballpark in the mid-2000s. As it turned out, it was mostly as I remembered it, but everything that was new to me was definitely an enhancement to the experience. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ed, and I chronicle all my sports travels on my website, Itinerant Fan. It has guides to all of the stadiums in the major American sports leagues, plus some college stadiums and even major venues around the world. Check it out sometime if you're into traveling for sports. If you come to Cincinnati, Ohio for sports, you'll be spending plenty of time along the city's riverfront. That's where you'll find the home of Major League Baseball's Cincinnati Reds, known as Great American Ballpark. The ballpark occupies a spot on the city's downtown riverfront and is located just east of where its predecessor, Riverfront Stadium, once stood. This was the first game of a 5-game, 4-city MLB road trip that I took over a week-long span, so subscribe to the Itinerant Fan channel and hit that bell button to be notified when new videos of the ballparks I visited go live. Okay, so if you're a visitor to Cincinnati looking to see a ball game, then you're likely staying downtown, and there are a number of hotels within an easy walking distance of Great American Ballpark. Whenever I come to town though, I like to approach things a little differently. I typically stay across the river in the city of Covington, Kentucky. 2 larger hotels, the River Center Marriott and the Embassy Suites River Center, are just across the river. I've stayed at both over the years, and from there it's just a matter of walking across the Ohio River. The historic John A. Roebling Suspension Bridge has connected the cities of Cincinnati and Covington since 1867, and if it looks somewhat familiar, it's because it was designed by, and named after, the same person who would go on to design the Brooklyn Bridge in a similar fashion. And these days, it's a pretty neat way to get to the ball game, at least if you don't mind taking a little stroll. From the hotels mentioned earlier, the walk is about a mile, about half of which you spend on the bridge. You'll be able to see the ballpark on your right as you cross. The area where Riverfront Stadium once stood is now mostly parkland, and when the bridge ends, you'll find yourself in an area known as the Banks. It features the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center and Paycor Stadium, home of the NFL Cincinnati Bengals, is just off to the west. Head to the east toward the ballpark and you'll be met with a cool little district full of bars and restaurants catering to the sports crowd. While it seemed like a fine afternoon for some pregame fun, I was eager to get reacquainted with the ballpark. The Reds have the distinction of being Major League Baseball's oldest franchise, with its roots dating all the way back to 1869. That's why the Reds begin every season at home, and also why Great American Ballpark has an old-timey aesthetic, going back to the days when young lads went to the ball grounds to see the local 9, if you know what I mean. The fact that ball and park are 2 different words in the stadium name harkens back to olden times as well. By the way, Great American comes from the park's naming sponsor, Great American Insurance, which operates out of its Cincinnati headquarters just a stone's throw away. The Reds franchise's long history is well reflected all around the ballpark, and it starts in front of the main gate. This area is known as the Crosley Terrace, named after the team's one-time home, Crosley Field. You'll find statues of many of the team's greats here, including its most polarizing star, all-time Major League hits leader, Pete Rose. Walking around the exterior of the ballpark, you'll get a lot of glimpses of how the Reds honor their past, which is a nice touch. Also, the multi-story building flanking the first base side of the ballpark houses the Reds Hall of Fame. I have not been inside here myself, and the museum does charge an admission fee even on game days, but I've heard from several fans who have seen it that it is worth it to explore if you've got the time. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews of Great American Ballpark over the years. Some folks think it's a very underrated ballpark, while others believe it doesn't measure up to its peers around the majors, especially considering how relatively new it is. While I don't know that I would put it in the upper echelon of Major League stadiums, I do think there's plenty of cool features and quirks that make it well worth a visit. One of the most common criticisms I hear about Great American Ballpark is that the designer should have had the foresight to angle it so the view from the outfield was of the downtown Cincinnati skyline and not of the Ohio River in Kentucky. I agree that downtown skylines typically make for cooler outfield views, but I don't necessarily think a fan loses that much here. Plus, I think it's a strong statement that the river is as big a part of this region's identity as anything else. That's certainly reflected in the outfield, where the two most prominent features are the center field plaza that's made to resemble a riverboat, and next to that, the two smokestacks that shoot off whenever a Reds player homers or whenever the team finishes off a victory. One of the smokestacks did briefly catch fire during a game in 2015, though no significant damage was reported. The designers did attempt to address any perceived disconnect between the ballpark and downtown with this interesting feature known as the GABP. It's an unusual break in the upper seating bowl, which was placed where it was because it aligns with Sycamore Street, a north-south street running through downtown. If you're in the upper concourse, the GABP makes for a pretty good standing room spot with a nice angle of the playing field. For this game between the Reds and St. Louis Cardinals, I had a seat in my preferred area, in the upper deck behind home plate. I enjoyed this vantage point for a couple innings, but since this game was sparsely attended, it was rescheduled from the previous evening after a rainout. I had plenty of room to roam around and watch the game from different angles. For example, I spent some time in the upper deck seats out in right field, so that I could get a little better view of the river and the outfield features while I watched the game. I do like that the seats here are angled toward the diamond, which helps a lot with sightlines. Okay, after a couple innings up here, it was time for me to check out the main concourse. While there are some areas on the lower level where you can stand and keep an eye on the game, I was quite surprised to find not much room in the outfield to do that, unlike a lot of other Major League ballparks. You can at least get an up-close view of the smokestacks if you like, and take a peek into the visiting team bullpen. If you've got kids, or you are one, head behind the stands in right field for an extensive kids' play area. Of course, I eventually had the urge to grab something to eat. One area where I do think Great American Ballpark shines is its concessions options, much of which reflects the unique cuisine of the region. Most of Cincinnati's well-known restaurant brands have some sort of presence here, from Skyline Chili to Montgomery Inn Barbecue to La Rosa's Pizza to Grater's Ice Cream. For a great look at the beer selection, head to the Brewery District on the third base side of the main concourse. The number of beers on tap here is pretty darn impressive for a ballpark, I must say. Back to food. I was tempted by an old Reds favorite, the Big Red Smoky, but I ended up going with a similar but newer smoked sausage called the Cincy Heat. It might look like a hot mess, as many ballpark sausages do, but this one was a good choice. Oh, and I had to follow it up with ice cream in a helmet, as I often do at Major League stadiums. I like that you could go with a full sundae, and I had another souvenir helmet to take home. Alas, it turned out to not be a good afternoon for the Reds, as they were pummeled by the Cardinals in the first game of a doubleheader. But it was a great day for me, as I had a blast seeing Great American Ballpark after too many years without watching a game here. I hope this video lends some insight into what it's like watching a Reds game at Great American Ballpark. If you've also seen an event here, or you're planning to sometime in the near future, then please let me know. Leave a like or a comment below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel because we'll be making a lot more stadium and travel videos like this one. And if you're looking for more info on other major cities or sports venues, head to itinerantfan.com. Thanks for watching, and happy travels!